Alright guys, so we're back again. Looks a little different than the last time you guys saw it with just the block itself. Now we've got the heads on, got the oil pan put on here. Oil pan's pretty self-explanatory. You can use black or gray RTV if you don't want to get the available gasket. I got a full gasket kit with the pistons and bearings and everything, the full rebuild kit that I got online, and it came with a nice little cork gasket. Made it real easy, simple, no mess, because honestly the less RTV you have to use, the better, just for less chance of it somehow getting inside the engine and creating another failure. So that's not what we want. Other than that, let's see, we got the flex plate on here. Yes, flex plate, not flywheel. This is not a manual. The bolts down there that hold it on, I think the torque spec on is like, I don't know, 50, 60 foot-pounds, something like that. I just give them a good little smack of the impact. They're not going anywhere. Not worried about it. The only real critical thing once you get to this point, or trying to get to this point, I should say, other than doing the block, would be putting the heads on. Make sure you get the surfaces really clean. Be careful with the razor. These are aluminum blocks and heads, and they will gouge very easily. So just use some brake clean and a rag, and then when you go to put them on, your head bolts, I went ahead and replaced them. You can reuse them. It doesn't say that you need to replace them. There seems to be a gray area there, but you'd probably be okay just reusing them. Just make sure you clean the bolts really well, clean the threads. The main thing you need to do, reuse them or not, I don't care. Just make sure that you put a light amount of oil on the thread of the bolts and underneath the head of the bolt / washer, to make sure that you get the proper torque. Otherwise, you're going to get that binding metal, that clicking noise where you feel like the torque wrench may have clicked, but it really didn't. That's because it's not oiled, and you're going to have seriously inaccurate torque readings. So there is a very specific procedure. When I was looking for the torque spec on this EJ25 single head cam motor, it seems like it had a few updates, because Subaru's had a lot of head gasket issues. They've had a few updates with the head gasket itself and the the proper torque specs / sequence, all that, blah blah blah. Well, I got the Haynes manual here for, let's see what it covers. Legacy Forester 2000 to 2009. Includes Legacy, Outback, and Baja. So it includes your turbo models as well. Now they have laid out a very specific sequence in the manual here, which I will zoom in, and you can see the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that you're supposed to do the heads in, the torque them in. It says be very cautious doing the exact sequence. And then over here, should have it marked on this side. Trusty book wrench there, or bookmarker, whatever you want to call it. And it has right here, let's see, 2000 through 2004 models. Those are obviously non-turboed. 2005 and later, this is a 2007, so this is the sequence that I followed right here, right there. And then you also have your turbo models. So I will let you guys see all of this. You can pause the video wherever you need to see something, depending on which model you have. As you can see, these top ones are non-turbocharged, 2000, 2004, 2005 and later. And then you have all turbocharged 2.5 models. Now, I followed the steps in 2005 and later models, which is torque in sequence to 22 foot-pounds, torque in sequence to 51. Then you're going to loosen all bolts 180, okay, and that's in reverse of the sequence that I just showed you, the 1 through 6. You're going to go through 6 to 1. This says loosen them all 180 degrees again. I think that's a typo. After you do the initial 180, they're going to be completely loose. So basically 22, 51 in sequence, and then reverse, loosen them all 180, Then you're going to tighten them all down to 31. Once you've done that, you're going to go an additional 90 in sequence. Then you're going to do an additional 45. Now it's going to say 80 to 90, 40 to 45. That's just because they want to make sure the final torque that you get on these bolts from where you start at the 31 foot-pounds do not, in any case, and this is any torque spec I found, do not exceed 180 degrees, okay, from the initial 31 foot-pounds. So that's why it says 80 to 90, 40 to 45. You probably want to stay on the lower side of these numbers here just to make sure that you're not exceeding 180, because you can overstretch the bolts and that would not be good. So, so you're going to do the initial 80 to 90, 40 to 45, and then the key thing here that I found in this one is on the last step of torquing, it's going to say right here, bolts, if I can find it, bolts 1 and 2 only, you're going to tighten an additional 40 to 45. So that would be the bolts, see over here, the bolts in the middle, right here, bolts 1 and 2. Those are the only ones going to get that last 40 to 45 right there. So that's all your torque specs. If you have any other questions, please feel free to comment. Do my best to answer them. But yeah, that's where we're at for now. Got the block together, heads on, oil pan, flywheel. Got the water pump on here, which this came with the gasket as well. I've seen guys use RTV on that, but again, I like to use pre-made gaskets. It feels safer to me. Only thing left is going to be, as far as assembling the actual motor itself, is going to be putting the crank sprocket and the timing belt on, getting those timing covers back on there. Obviously, for that, we got to do the oil pump, which I'm going to do here in just a second. Then throw in the intake manifold back on and crossover pipes and all that fun stuff. So once we get a final assembly here on the motor itself, I will kind of run you through it again, showing you where certain pipes and things go. I know it gets confusing even if you do label stuff. If you're like me, I can't even read my own handwriting sometimes. So yeah, that's basically where we're at for now. Oh, one more thing. When you're doing the torque on your heads here, make sure when you're doing the degrees you're using an actual breaker bar and not the torque wrench, because you don't want it to click. You can keep going, but it's going to throw off your degrees. And it needs to be pretty exact. They do sell little tools for doing degree torque angles, or whatever you want to call it. I've never used those. The best thing to do, and if I can find a bolt here, I mean this is obviously not a head bolt, but if you just go and put a little mark, somewhere like on the bottom of the bolt, like say a little dot right there, that would work for to show where the bottom is, and then you're gonna go 90, or you're gonna go 45, and it just kind of, that way you can have something to give it more of an exact gauge than just turning the actual wrench itself and trying to figure out what 90 or 45 exactly is. So, but like I said before, the best thing to do if you're unsure of the exact angle, less is better. Obviously you don't want it at 30 or something, but if you're like, oh, did that go a full 45, or is it more like 40, just leave it, because it's probably at 40. And if you do all the torque specs and you went 45 or on the high side of that to up to 50, you could be over 180, you could be stretching the bolts, and you don't want to do that. So what the actual initial or final torque is on these heads, from what I've seen, people are saying somewhere around in the 70 foot-pound range, maybe even 80. People are checking with torque wrenches and stuff. So unfortunately, Subaru hasn't released an official actual measure of torque for the final torque. It's all just done with angles. So yeah, I mean, that's how a lot of manufacturers are doing it nowadays, but a lot of manufacturers are also having a lot of head gasket issues. So anyways, that's why I just went ahead and replaced head bolts, honestly. I didn't want some old bolts that are stretched out and not getting the right torque, and you know, all this is for nothing. So anyways, it's enough rambling for now. Like I said, I'll give you guys another video once I get this all back together, kind of run through it again, so you can see where everything goes, and hopefully by this weekend I can get it back. And well, that's not the Forester obviously, but get it back in the vehicle and have it running, and yeah, good times.